Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Outside of the Box. It has been a little while. I will tell you that sometimes, when you get under the weather, then things happen, and I had to reschedule a couple of interviews and then just delay overall because, as you can tell, I still don't quite have my voice back. But I wanted to do a show before we get into me going to Vegas and planning all sorts of fun things for after I get back. So I did want to touch on a couple of things for this episode. One of them being just real quick with the Vegas Vengeance fights on YouTube. I hope everyone's gotten a chance to see those because there were some pretty exciting ones. I think for me, the two most exciting matches of the night both involved Big Dill, which I do love that robot, but it was a little bit of a surprise to me looking at all of the overall matches that one was obvious chair fight, but that both of those matches would be the ones that were the most exciting. So obviously talking about the chair fight first, the interesting thing for me is that I think that the chairs took more damage than they dished out to the robots themselves. They looked pretty warped and torn up, especially the one that Overhaul had. It looked like it was made of paper at some point because it was just so, mangled. But that was still a very exciting fight. I think chair fights are awesome. Would have never conceived of the idea before seeing it, but I think things like that we need more of and could definitely make things more interesting. Now, the other fight involving Big Dill versus Blip. So that was an interesting one for a couple of reasons. First of all, there was a moment towards the beginning where Blip got under Big Dill, and it's just that kind of waiting to tee them up moment where there was a pause to kind of create that anticipation and then that initial flip. I think the match went the way that most people expected, except for the very end, where with that last flip, Big Dill landed on the upper deck with its forks stuck into the upper deck. That was wild. Pretty exciting stuff. I think everyone was really surprised. It was, very much like those moments with Glitch blowing up Rotator, things like that, where it's just like, what just happened? So love the Vegas Vengeance. Really cool idea to kind of air those fights, and I'm excited for getting to finally see the Remar stuff as well, hopefully pretty soon. So another thing that I wanted to talk about is the preseason rankings, which I will tell you, to be honest, I don't put a whole lot of stock in that because you never know how the season's going to go. Those rankings do not dictate at all who I think is going to be in the top 32 necessarily, or how those rankings are going to look in the actual tournament. There's a lot of stuff that can happen. So it's more just, hey, this is what this looks like. Maybe give some teams some motivation. Maybe cause some teams to feel a little bit overconfident because they're like, yeah, I got a really good ranking, and not being as focused as they can. So, you never know what that's going to do. For the most part, I think that the rankings were, fairly on point. There wasn't a lot of surprises for me. I think some of the bigger surprises were like, so I think that the rankings depend on what you base them on. For me, I base them primarily on what happened the prior season. I think that that's the way that you have to do it. Like, sure, a robot may have a certain pedigree, but every year, essentially, you're coming with a new robot. It may be the same robot in a lot of respects, but it is, you're likely not going to bring the exact same robot from the year before. Everybody's evolving, so it's a new robot with that name and probably a very similar design, but it's a new robot. So I don't think that you can say, oh, well, this person, had really great seasons in the past, so they should have a higher ranking. doesn't matter. We're looking at the last season for me. I'm sure that, whoever made the list used different criteria, but that's just my personal take on it. And so when I saw Lockjaw, granted at number 25, but I mean, sitting higher than robots that had certainly a better record last season than they did. And that was a little bit surprising. I mean, Donald is a freaking legend. So, if you're looking at that robot compared to another similar robot, sure, they're going to get the edge. But, aside from that, it was a little bit surprising. I mean, I probably would have put them right at the 32 at the bottom, because they didn't even make the playoffs last season, where you had some teams like Hijinks and Mammoth that had. So like, to me, that's the way that I would look at it. So that one was a little bit surprising. I would say aside from that, personally, I would have thought Rotator would have been a little bit higher, because Rotator did have a great season last year. Granted, they lost to Glitch in the Golden Bolt tournament, but that was, I think, a shock to everyone. And I don't necessarily think it was, so much fault on the part of Victor or Rotator. It's just something that happened. So I kind of would have thought that they would have been a little bit higher. And when you come to the top three, I mean, that's a coin flip. You've got Witch Doctor, Tantrum, and Endgame. I mean, like, they all have their own upsides, like, in their own right. Obviously, Endgame and Tantrum are the Giant Nut winners, but Endgame got knocked out of the Golden Nut or Giant Nut tournament very early. Tantrum, had a great season, only had the one loss, but again, there's so much that you can talk about there, as well as Witch Doctor. I mean, Witch Doctor may not have won either of those tournaments. However, when you're looking at it from the perspective of, they got to the finals of both. And not only that, but I mean, being able to do that after having to go through that whole tournament all the way to the finals in the Giant Nut tournament, and then in the Golden Bolt having to do the essentially the bounty match, and then go through the Golden Bolt tournament. I mean, they definitely had more matches in that sense than Endgame or Tantrum. So it's it's such a toss up, but those definitely should be the top three, and Sawblaze definitely should have been number 4, getting to the semis in the Giant Nut tournament. So overall, I was really pleased with what I saw there. I'm excited to see how it all shakes out, obviously. So that is ongoing as we speak, as far as those initial matches leading up to the tournaments, which I am excited to be there for. So aside from that, let's also kind of touch on just the show, letting you all know that I love the feedback that I get. I think that it's so important, because I really want to know what you want to see. I want to know what teams you want to see. I want to know what kind of content you want to see, because this is ultimately something for the builders and the fans. It's all about engagement, and it's all about growing the sport. And so I want to do that in the best way that I possibly can. I can tell you that I definitely have plans after Vegas to have a lot of teams on that I had not previously had on the show before, especially some of my favorite teams. So I'm really excited to get that going. And I apologize for that brief editorial pause, as you can tell, my voice is still not 100%, so I'm still working on that. But yeah, so I will be in Vegas in a week. I'll be getting there on an off day, so no fights that day, but then it'll be 2 days of BattleBots and getting to see all of these awesome machines and getting to meet these awesome people and bringing more your way. So I am greatly looking forward to that. And just lots of exciting things to come. So please keep giving me feedback, letting me know what you like, what you don't like, what you want to see, and I will keep trying to make this show the best that it can be and bring lots more exciting stuff your way. So I will see everybody after Vegas.